Enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussion. And Good Company gives you a seat at the table to enjoy smart and interesting conversations as they happen. I am pleased to be in the company again of Julia Meek, who is the WBOI Arts and Culture reporter. She's the host and producer of Folktales and a living legend artist of Fort Wayne. So welcome.
That was quite a welcome. Thank you so much. It's always fun to sit at your table, Sarah.
Well, thank you. And so the reason that I'm asking you to sit here today and have this conversation with me, unlike most shows, which I don't know where they're going to go in the direction, is because I've been working on this project about happiness and how people define happiness. And you were gracious enough to participate in the actual exhibit that I'm doing with the Jeffrey Kroll Gallery here at the library. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about happiness and also the role of music and songs in terms of not only how music inspires musicians in terms of happiness, using happiness as a muse, but also the role that music plays in people's lives to make them happy. So the first thing I wanted to sort of start with is looking at the idea. I mean, obviously, you know, you, from your creation of Folktales and using that it's a unique form of storytelling. And, you know, you've created weekly programs with, you know, a variety of themes, everything from sunshine and blue skies, joy, education, shame. I mean, you name it, you've covered it. So I'm curious, when you think about happiness as a theme in music from around the globe, what are your thoughts about it and how is it used as a muse?
Music does make the world go round. We certainly know that. And yes, thank you for your interest in folktales. And certainly with folktales, the whole premise of folktales is that through music we can best understand and respect the peoples of the world. We can best understand ourselves as well through our music, through other people's music, just through the language of music. So one answer, I'll try not to ramble throughout this conversation, but one answer to your question, it's all about the music. And music is a language, and we might say many wonderful things about happiness as music as muse, connecting everything all together. And of course it's true, it's probably been said before by someone way more eloquent than I am. The thing remains, music's the best way to understand everything. I also like the quote, and use this one a lot, the greater part of our happiness or misery depends on our dispositions and not on our circumstances. Now, Martha Washington was attributed with that quote, but it's got to be ancient. It was written somewhere without words on a cave painting wall somehow, you know, to convey that message, because we have to keep happy to have hope. It's a great component of hope, and we have to have it to go forward. That's been so since ancient times.
And if you think about that, the first way that people would express their emotions, be it happiness or sorrow, is the voice, and maybe, you know, and with song.
The voice is accredited with being the first instrument, of course, and the current, you know, speaking of relevancy, and here to stay, we hope also as well, and certainly giving voice to that, all beyond the pleasure, the search and pursuit of pleasure is survival. And so linking it with that, having again the hope, they're fairly close in the dictionary, and that's with a good reason too, of course, because at least psychologically in the Julian area, I'll say. But yes, it all goes together with being able to pick up and carry on and to remember what you need. Music is a tool for learning and remembering, of course, as well. everything, where there's danger, what you did when there was sadness, but certainly the pursuit of happiness.
And so you also talk about that music, you said, I'm quoting you, is the thing. It's our walking pace. It's what it's based on. It all goes back to that, the human voice. And it's also what you need for community is music. And one of the things so in the other 17 individuals that I interviewed about how they define happiness, music as well as certain songs were very instrumental to their defining happiness. Several, it was having either a happy playlist or playing certain songs when they're in the car with the windows down and driving. And so why is it, do you think, that songs and specific songs are so important, or we link them to either our current or past happiness? What is it about songs themselves?
Thank you for bringing up the thread of the walking pace, because yes, that's the first feeling and connection. The further back we go in time, and to the hunter-gatherer, the moving and connecting and quite communal lifestyle, that's one learns to feel that prenatal, neonatal, in the backpack as you're walking down the road of life. Truly, your walking pace is your music pace, and it's your heartbeat. It's the external heartbeat, if you will, of carrying it along. It is in you. It's all around you. We relate. That's why it's easier, even with music, than art. You don't even have to use your eyes. You hear, and you are into quite literally the pace and the heartbeat of your community through your music. Yes, if it's expressing a sad, we have the whole range of emotions are there and necessary. Being happy all the time, that would be another folk tale, but being happy all the time doesn't, kind of takes the big thrill out of being happy.
Right.
We need the textures, we need the paces, we need everything, to carry us through life and reflect on what is happening with us. But the fact that we can carry it in our DNA. It's beyond, once it's not only just this thing that's in us vaguely somehow. We are hardwired by now to respond to the sounds that make our world, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, and you also said, so you actually said that part of your definition is this having the spiritual balance to keep your heartstrings vibrating at the right frequency. So is that what you mean by that that pace, or that internal kind of music, in a sense? Is that what that means to you?
I would say that it all melds and builds on each other, and is wired so that without our thinking about it, whether it's a cell phone or a computer or an electric instrument or my heartstrings right now, yes, they're vibrating at frequencies. The world is electromagnetic. We know all of the physics and chemistry and things that are way beyond. I do not do the folk tale of chemistry or physics or any of that. Well, that's not even true, because I've had the folk tale of the four elements would hit some of that. But yeah,
right.
Again, everything in this conversation is certainly bound to show the connection and the connectivity between everything, especially the arts in our environment, and especially music within the arts. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea that you also say is that if you look at it from a global perspective, it doesn't matter if you don't understand the lyrics, like if it's in a different language or something, but that it really is this universal language, and there is a commonality in the song that people can respond to.
That's something, by going on a topic around the whole musical globe, that we prove week in and week out. It's not contrived or forced in any way, because the music that represents a certain feeling or emotion or characteristic or whatever will affect the same parts of the brain and the same chemistry within 100 different people, that commonality will be there. Same of all of the arts, but I do think that music, because it comes totally from that walking pace and the beat and resonates in our heartstrings, is immediate and, again, easiest to be taken universally.
And I think also the idea that songs make us feel something. I mean, if you think about
Which was their point, correct.
right, which is the nature really of country music or folk music. And but when you originally were thinking about folktales, which was really using music for storytelling, you know, it would have been easy for you to do just country music or folk music, but you felt that that wasn't really what your intent was. So talk about the intent of folktales in terms of how to use music to show and demonstrate different emotions like happiness.
Well, first of all, in figuring out the perfect combination for a folk tale, I knew that I didn't want to be bored, and I didn't want to bore my listeners. And to me, and any one country, and don't ever make me try to say what country I love the most, or would prefer if I could only have one country's music, because I would hate to have to choose, but just so. I would think it would be very boring week in, week out to only work within a certain frame, bound by geography, even socioeconomics, even any one thing, but especially geography, because our world, our brain, our thoughts, our feelings, our own melting pot is so much bigger than that. So, with that in mind, it's just natural to try to paint, to make a texture. I will also always be the first to tell you that doing a folktale is just like painting the most wonderful picture that you can dream up, but you paint it in music, not in brushstroke or whatever your medium might be. And so that is another reason that I prefer the comparative, the collage, the big sweeping panoramic view of whatever we are discussing that is a common thread. That's another point of folk tales as we discuss the universal similarities and connections and tell those stories.
And what do you, why do you think that music is the most powerful means of expression?
Because it can resonate, probably in you know, in the laws of physics. I do expect that goes far.
And what do you think is this idea? You use this phrase, musical wisdom. What do you mean by that? Is it that music can, you know, sort of help teach us, or, you know, guide us along the way, or what we take from songs?
Sure, if you take it, I mean, it's contemporary, it's an ageless, timeless thing, but much like those cave paintings, that's all they had. And it got us here today. I don't know. I don't know. Our cell phones would if we had the electricity. If we had the grid, we've kept them on the grid. I mean, of course, back so the primitive grid, there was the way, the path, your pace, your walking pace, resonating inside you, and the next direction that you get on a cave painting around that bend, and that's pretty powerful. Now, the other component in that journey is music, and the one instrument that could be taken anywhere along with you is the voice. And so put it all together, and it's those remembered, it's those memories. Memories serve so many purposes, starting with survival and ending with the pursuit of, in this conversation, happiness.
Right. And it also, a lot of times, that those memories and the recollections of past times when you were happy or you remember certain things were when you play certain songs, or certain songs make you think or bring you back to that time. So it allows you to create that happy experience for yourself. I mean, would you say that that's true about it?
It's vital to it. Again, survival and surviving well, then as now, relies a lot on how well you remember and act on what you remember. And the best way to do that is to have a really full graphic, the most effective network of prompts that you possibly can. So yes, that certainly plays into it. And then taking it past that, when you don't need it for survival, all of those things from ancient times till now weren't just pulled out when it was time to see what we need to do next. It was for every bit of enjoying the present, remembering the past, all of the things that are human nature that make people people, that make us a community and a universal collective, I think.
And so when I looked at, I was looking at some of the songs, the top 20 happy songs of all times. So there's obviously "Don't Worry, Be Happy" by Bobby McFerrin, which actually he said that the lyrics were inspired by a phrase popularized by an Indian mystic. And then there's "Happy Together" by the Turtles, and "You Made Me So Very Happy" by Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and even more recent "Happy" by Ashanti, and My Happy Ending by Avril Lavigne. But a lot of the happy titles were also songs from the 50s and 60s. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, was that more of a, because you wouldn't necessarily think that part of the 60s was such a cheerful time, but why do you think that so many songs that were produced and created in the 50s and 60s use the theme of happy and being happy?
Well, I'm glad you asked. And as we look again through the pages of the Julianary, I think that such a very important part of our whole collection of preserving the folk music and the folk customs actually were being harvested, came to fruition, being harvested by the 60s, and that's because of recording equipment and the ease and accessibility. One of my particular musical heroes is our Murray Schafer, who's quite a composer and musician and musicologist from Canada, and he attributes amplification to being the biggest connection and modern connection, and it happened early in the 20th century when people could finally amplify, record, share music. Since ancient times, and again, there's so many quotes, there's so many themes, there's so many stories, there's so many true cases. The Songcatcher is a wonderful, barely fictitious movie set in transitional times in the South that was talking about women coming into power within university settings, all following one woman who wanted to go down and record the true music up in the mountains, and that was quite a story. But as soon as somebody could get out their the child ballads before recording, he could scribe it. He wrote those down. He understood the importance of connecting and getting it before it was lost. There's the other key word before or three. It was lost. That's the important thing. By the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, portable recording equipment. The Lomax brothers. We've spoken before off camera about this, but they believe so much in finding music around the world to substantiate or to go take the next step after Child and his ballads. So they couldn't wait. They took the then portable recording equipment of the day, which was probably maybe twice around as this table, and they were out getting. Somebody got Woody Guthrie before he passed. Things like that became so instrumental. Interestingly enough, when the Lomaxes were in Appalachia looking for Jane Ritchie, who they had heard about and needed to find her for the Appalachian traditions. She was over in England and Scotland recording her roots with the same portable recording systems. And I mention and stress all that because as we sit here with our little things and our lists and our and I hope we're all happy because we're still trying to be so. that drive that started back then, and as all sorts of amplification and radio and television and technology was happening, and we could go out there and get that music, it was totally necessary we do so because it was drying up. It was disappearing because of radio and television, making people consumers and not producers of music, of their own music.
And do you think that also that because maybe to counteract what was happening in the 60s, or maybe to support what was happening in the 60s, that this theme of happiness and happy became such a push in the type of songs and music that was recorded?
What was important in the 60s is that one was encouraged, almost even charged with or challenged with expressing oneself. That's the difference. To me, in my opinion, it has more to do with the whole transitional times and the early 20th century of Europe, and that's where a lot of our ethnomusicology comes directly from, and I'm not among the rest of the world, and we see this all reflected in the rest of the world, but as it came to us, there was a lot of transitional stuff. There were world wars and huge depressions to prove it. Things were changing, things were crumbling. It was still very much coming out of the Victorian eras where you didn't say what you thought. You did so many things. I think that the 60s was the decade where everybody was supposed to was again encouraged so much to express oneself. We had all of this technology bringing all these traditions. We had our own folk singing movement that was actually in the 50s, and that would be more of a reflection or an answer or a response to the things that did happen through the whole century, and then causing and after World War II into the 50s, which was still the military time, also wondering what to do with all of this technology. People heard more folk music from every country in the world between 1952 and 62, just because television at that time was so commercial and accessible, was so hungry for anything and everything to put on the stage, and one of the most popular things to put on the stage is homemade music. So yeah, it's a wonderful cycle that I love, having job security and producing arts and culture interviews perhaps, and certainly things like folk tales, because it's there for the sharing.
And so you think that really the 60s was really a time when music became more of use for expression of how you were feeling or what you were seeing? Or
only after the 60s was certainly recognized as a time where it's cool to have those expressions and share them with people. Whether you're a child, a woman, red, black, yellow, green, or blue, it was the Eastern, Western. The importance was you are you should be happy, you should share it.
Right. And also the idea, young people today don't realize, but like when people would get an album and they would lie on the floor and listen to it and look at the album and read the lyrics and sort of be transported, or even, sort of be in a meditative state that could bring them either past memories or to think about the future, and so that really helped to push the idea of being happy or thinking about happiness or what would make you happy. So it also afforded that opportunity.
Indeed. Again, it was the time, it was the technology, it was the natural evolution. Also remember at that time, people like Vance Packard were, I think it was in the early 60s, that's when and what Hidden Persuaders was all about, because it was about the marketing mystique that obviously glommed onto the fact that there is that pursuit of happiness, and by the way, another component that actually happened in the 50s and then is here making this all ferment and such, is the increase of free time. And again, that's a lot of technology and the rest of our lifestyle, again, feeding into the happiness and the keeping up with the Joneses kind of happiness that Vance Packard was looking for, and that push, some say and still say, was quite specific and intentional by manufacturers everywhere to get people to buy their happiness. And so who are you going to believe?
Right. Well, and you, I mean, so now, I mean, so, I mean, other people were trying to help you either through music or other, you know, philosophers or even marketers were trying to help you, other, you know, people to define happiness or find their happiness. And so,
Or buy it in,
or
a,
buy
in
it,
a can.
right,
Yeah.
right, or in a can or in a jar or in a cream or, you know, anything, or in a car or even in a house. So what, let's talk about how you define happiness.
Starting with it being so personal, I'm not going to say it's elusive, of course, but I do believe it's the ability to balance all that you have in your life, all that you have in your soul, and to come out with a positive, with a positive reflection. I have another odd little situation. I love my life and everything that I do. I don't have time to watch a lot of television. It's not. I enjoy the medium and what can be done with that large or small screen, to be sure. My chance to come across a performance, a little performer that was on The Voice some years ago. Just was just a little snippet going from A to B real late one night, and found a little video, and it was a little beautiful young woman. It came out in her little pre-performance speech that she had been suffering for the last few years of cancer, so she was pretty hard off. She had a beautiful singing voice. She was on an emerging, beautiful little career. She went by Nightbird Jane, and she did go on to sing her piece, but the quote was that she shared with us was, "You can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy." I thought, well, leave it to a brilliant and beautiful person firsthand to be able to even form that and share it and say that she is a nightbird indeed, but how true that is. And that speaks not just as I mean, it's a very positive thing, and we all wish and hope that we can do that. Maybe if we've even been successful once, we could do it again. But also, that's vital to that balance. That's the only way to be happy, I think, and that's so important too. I want to be happy because I want to survive. It could be as simple as that.
But I don't think it's as simple as that for you. I mean, that you want it.
It is or it isn't, but yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, you also, when I interviewed you for the exhibit, one of the things that you may or may not realize that you talked a lot about and associated with your happiness was this idea of security and safety. And I'm wondering, because you talked about it with, even with things, like you wanted to have just enough, you know, to satisfy your needs and things, but not too much. You talked about that even when you were teaching and you realized some of the insecurity that the students had with food and clothing and shelter. And then you also talked about the security that you got from your grandmother, about not being afraid of anything. Mm-hmm. So talk about, and what I'm trying to also show is that how your experiences through your life and those who, you know, helped you through your, you know, childhood years, how they sort of help you create your own, I guess, definition of happiness. But talk about this whole idea of security in all of these ways, that how that influences your happiness.
Again, and I am speaking for myself, but if we go back to the most ancient of times, especially before the agrarian lifestyle kicked in, and there was that sort of comfort or a new way to define being comfortable because you could stay in one place. It still goes back to the fact that there has to be some connection between the hope that you need to go forward and your own self-preparedness to allow you to get there and to continue to go forward, that motivates you, that makes you want to be, makes you know in yourself, and that's self-confidence, yes, of course, and it's also security, to know that you don't have to worry about everything. Don't worry, be happy. You don't have to worry. You can be happy. And a lot of that is I'll bring up the grasshopper and the ant or the little red hen, and then we don't need to bring up any more of those. But there are always guidelines to help you do what you need to do and get where you need to be so that you can have that feeling, because you need that feeling to be able to concentrate and focus on the rest of your life. That in itself will make you happy, and it's all about being happy. Again, I hate to speak in so many oversimplifications, but I feel that is so. It does help, even though one may not have a lot of resources, if one is resourceful. And that's where being able to express oneself. That's why I say I've always felt it easier for me to be happy. And those people in my life that mentored and helped me form those things at a very, very early age were of the same mind. I don't know how I would be if I was raised by other people, but I truly believe that if you can do for yourself, for survival, that's an empowerment. If you can create, and I do think I'm so fortunate and blessed to be able to create, it doesn't matter how well, but I can share a thought, I can convey a thought, I can put a thought down on any surface with almost any medium. I never met a medium I didn't like, and that does certainly carry to music. And then if you speak of communal aspects of both, well, communal art is just something so powerful as, again, making music by oneself is too, but making it with a group or sharing something that everybody knows, it's just it exponentially is just concentric circles getting bigger and bigger and bigger, not dissipating because it hits yours, and then together they make one great big power. And that's where I want mine to be as strong as it can be, and it is made stronger by the creativity and the preparedness, those two things, and then it's going to get me closer to yours and what's going on in your world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And do you think that because creating and being creative is so important to you, do you think that we create our own happiness?
By Martha Washington's description, yes, certainly I do. I mean, yes. Create in the selection process, I'll say yes. And
I mean, you always say that you think, that you can always find something to be happy about. I mean, do you think
I
that?
hope so. I mean, yeah, so knock on wood so far.
So do you think that's something that was just natural to you? Do you think that's something you intentionally create for yourself? Do you think that's something that maybe that your grandmother gave you?
I think I'm fortunate that I was surrounded by parents and grandparents, again, very creative, very resourceful. I wish it could have been way easier for them, because my own mom had a hard path to go. We lost our dad when we were very, very young. Plenty of circumstances that everybody has in their life. And I remember I think I'm blessed at a young age I was sat back and listened and watched, and you do hear the music and you do see those paintings along the still, no matter how figurative they all may be by now, about what you could or should be doing, what you can and hopefully will be creating to form your own security and to make your own world and to help other people, because that to me is a big part of it too. I would hate to be, I like to be self-sufficient, and I hope that I am, but I also cannot imagine being in a cloister situation for very long, unless I had to. If that was I would draw plenty, I think, and hum in my head. But seriously, I think I'm very fortunate to have had so many influential people. Again, not always the average circumstances, especially for growing up in those 50s. And to this day, I am so happy to have always stayed outside all of the obvious or still, even in the 21st century, these constricting or confining boxes that people might want to be in or put other people in. You know, I'm happy to go about my way, and that's how I do it.
But you also talk about that you're not a materialistic person yet, and the community is what gives you your riches.
It is. That is my wealth, and I am proud of that, to be sure. I mean, to have so much. One thing I think that you cannot have enough of, perhaps, is community connections. You know, and we won't get into whether they can be bought or you know, advanced Packardism there, I'll make a reference to him, but otherwise, no, that is the importance and to me, my solid gold, yes. And there's no secret recipe for building that kind of or even wanting or making it satisfying for you, but I do think that I'm very fortunate to have always had the resources to be able to share with the community. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And clearly, when you think about your own creativity with the arts, helps you to express and be happy. But what role do arts like music or listening to music or going to see an exhibit or, you know, photography or a musical, what role do those play in terms of your own definition of happiness beyond just you being a creator in the arts?
You mean, well, I mean, we agree and of course totally and genuinely accept the fact of how powerful those things are in affecting us.
Right. I want to know how they really affect you personally. Like when you listen to a great piece of music, or you see an incredible painting, or you know, you watch an incredible dance performance.
Oh, I mean, of course it's thrilling. Of course, I mean, it's total. To me, it's a totally immersive, as well as I'm not going to say that I'm possessed, but it's putting on yes, it's being saturated. Perhaps might be a word if you're, and I maybe easily saturated or attracted, but yes, I like letting those floodgates or the barrier, whatever you want. I don't feel about like barriers up and down. I guess is my eyes and ears are genuinely and almost always open. I hope to be. I guess that I think that working hard to keep not only an objectivity about oneself, just as a general, because approach any day, there's enough to do without fighting your own subjectivity. So it's like, this is get neutralist. Yeah, neutrality is a nice thing to put on in the morning and have with your morning cup of joe or whatever you have, and then go out and face the day. Yes, and if you do that, everything that's out there is going to present itself to you. Now again, this sounds, yes, ridiculously simple. The stuff that the fables and the wisdom tales and the Kata and the Bible, every good book, East, West, North, and South, Spirit, will tell you. So I'm not saying anything new. I do think the key is be ready for it, be watching for it, and have something that you know you're going to do with it when it comes.
So do you think of yourself as someone who is easily made happy?
Yes. You know? Yes, even my friends and my enemies will, and everybody in the vast middle will tell you I'm pathetically optimistic at times. Also, maybe even in the same paragraph or at the start of the next one, they'll tell you I'm brutally and blatantly honest. That's part of objectivity too. And I think that, you know, do I like every piece of music? Do I only listen to pieces of music I like and think of little candies? And no, I mean, and I love Mr. Rogers, but I'm not Mrs. Rogers, or even in the Rogers family. I mean, I would love to be thought of as some tail relatives or a great big fan of the Rogers family. But seriously, I just think that if you keep that attitude, we can only help people help themselves. We cannot do stuff for people either. So I cannot tell you anything magic except open your heart and soul to it, and eyes and ears and brain and everything to whatever it is. From survival to happiness to dealing with sadness to dealing with all the other things. Sadness, again, you can't wait till things aren't hard. You can't wait till everything's perfect. You can't wait till there's nothing making you sad in order to be happy.
Right. Well,
that's what your whole
right.
point of this is all
right.
about.
Well, it's the whole idea that people say, oh, I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds, I get that job, I get that raise, I buy that new car. And the state is that they may be happy for a moment, or it may, but not.
It's kind of like the folktale of shoulda, woulda, coulda. But yeah, just so. Especially if it is, the more physical something is or material, because certainly a roof over one's head is very, very physical. But it's, and necessary. I mean, food, clothing, and shelter being essential. But yes, the inner peace and calm, that doesn't come from stuff, and it comes from your own heart and your own heartstrings. Yes. So.
And do you think that your definition, both for looking at other people, but really for yourself, do you think it changes as you get older, or you move through different stages of life?
As we've just been talking, mine's pretty basic and pretty primitive, as in, meaning primal, if you will. So I more work toward nurturing it or living up to it, or keeping it healthy and well fortified to not diminish it. I'm always open to new things and twists and ways to do anything better, and that would be including to keep a good attitude, especially as we do get to this end of our life's food chain, But and I'm always happy to learn new things. That's part of, I think, what keeps me happy. I don't suggest anybody do what somebody else is doing to make them happy. I do suggest one try as hard or as extensively to get in a happy place, to figure out something that really works.
Right. Well, I mean, part of the problem is if they're constantly looking at what someone else does to be happy, or what someone else has to be happy, or if they keep looking at all of those things or measurements, then that precludes that they will be happy, because all they're doing there is comparing themselves to others, or seeing where they're short-sighted, or
Again, Vance Packard checked in the middle of the last century on that very, very problem and situation, and it's not becoming any easier. Everything, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. For everything that's your best friend, there's going to be something that's going to make it like your worst enemy. All of those things, exactly what you're saying. It's you can easily set yourself up to fail or to be very miserable by your own
efforts to be happy. It's like that yin
Yes.
and that yang
Yep.
of it.
It's balance. And then speaking of karma, and that is another folk tale, which we've had a lot of fun doing, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it's all woven together, a true tapestry. Beyond it, I can't think of anything. Perhaps often they'll talk about a hummingbird's wing, or such a true delicacy, or a butterfly, or a whole kaleidoscope of butterflies, and the combination of textures and little and tiny little secrets they hold. That's the complexity that we're talking about here.
Do you think that people focus too much on being happy and their happiness?
Again, referring to Vance Packard, it all depends on what you think you can buy to get it. But I will counter by saying this isn't for everyone. But I think that it's, I think self-absorption, I fear that self-absorption has been another thing that has been happening, that especially, you deserve it. And we all deserve happiness, by the way, but what you deserve to get there, it can be a terrible trap to, in the end, make you feel that whatever it is you think you want or don't even know what you want, you don't have or you ain't going to get. So that's like a counterproductive a prompt right there. And I think that far too often, especially in this 21st century now, that's certainly like this, and again, going back to social media, kind of pushing, think of, it's all about you, it's all about you. Well, in my mind, it's all about the whole world, and so I can't force other people to have that perspective, but I think that it's way harder to be happy if you don't have that kind of a perspective. I would counter with, what have you done for somebody else in the last 24 hours? I am certainly a huge, huge advocate, a fierce warrior for volunteerism. And that's something I've worked hard on all my life, because all of the precious, they say some of the best things in life are free, but for all else, you need an army to help you do it, and volunteers can make the difference there. And to me, that has been a great source of my happiness, and also my achievements, and also the things that I've been able to do for other people to make them happy. And so I cannot say enough about the properties of thinking outside of yourself and for the good of man, the world that we live in, which is another point of the primitive survival, including the arts that are there to help you remember it. So you keep just making me tie everything back and bring it all the way back here, and I'm happy to do that.
Well, that's, I think, part of your wisdom that you bring.
Thank you.
And through lots of the ups and downs of life that you have. I mean, when you think about some of the struggles, I mean, you have a younger sister with special needs, and you had a stroke 4 years ago, or is it coming up? Yeah.
It's a while back, yeah.
And, and you think about the challenges and the ever-changing landscape of media and what that means for public radio and every other challenge that you face, and, you lost the love of your life. And how does that all sort of bring, how do you internalize that and then create the wisdom to take all those kinds of things and bring it to how to continue to move ahead? And
in my own world and prescription for that kind of survival, quite well, it's through the arts and through storytelling and through sharing. And if we take Nightbird Jane's words, you can't wait till everything's good, that's just it. And it sounds crazy simple, but to me, the alternative is absolutely unthinkable. To me, that would be the 1984 rat cage on the face if I couldn't do something to satisfy and hopefully increase my own happiness, which is connected to my world and your world, and that's my theory, and I am sticking to it because it means so much.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that when you were younger, or when you made decisions in your life, do you think you were ever driven by the question of, will this make me happy, or I want to do this because of the personal reward and happiness that I'm going to get from it? Or did you just believe that there were certain things that just innately you went towards or just had to express, and through that you found your happiness?
If I understand your question, and I think I do, like, which came first?
Well, I'm trying to say is, do you do things, do you chase the happiness, or do you just chase whatever you express, doing things that you innately just want, have to do in a sense, and then that brings the happiness?
I think in my life, truly, it has been, you do what you're doing, and I was encouraged, even though life wasn't always easy when we were kids, often it wasn't, but we were always encouraged to pursue that which we thought was important, and we were surrounded by people that really supported us in that. So yes, it was just the doing. I feel like I'm blessed by having been and still being quite inquisitive. Might drive other people crazy, but and I always try to be respectful with it. But yes, at such an early age, and it wasn't about the stuff. And thinking back, the things I had did make me happy, but I always had things that would help me make things. And that really made me happy. Yes, so it was always thinking, wow, this is happiness. Wow, yeah, I get exactly what it feels. It feels so good. And so, yes, it isn't like I want to do this so I can feel good. However anybody's motivated, I can't speak to, except to put a folktale together about how it worked for them or didn't work, But that's the point of sharing the memories that's so important, of telling the good story. And we were raised on stories, that's not unusual. I think it's been elusive, and I think storytelling was sort of, again, much like homemade music and storytelling, all of that was endangered by the social media of the day, especially television and audio, radio of any sort, and film and everything else, but especially radio, and of which R. Murray Schaefer spoke back then, because amplification, that was the time when you could do something bigger than you. Mural is bigger than life. Is a mural a rush to do? Oh my goodness, yes. Is a mural a rush? I'll ask you, is it a rush to look at when you see one? Is it a rush when you see the whole, when you hear the sound of a cyclone or a wind, the biggest sound in the world, or a choir, or you name it, that is such a rush, and it has served its purpose, and that's the forces and factors that we're talking about here. So, yeah, and if they all happen in your own head and your own heartstrings, it's still a very, very, very big response.
And that's what you're looking to achieve.
That's what, yeah. Well, yeah. Or it's just what happens. That's what I enjoy having happened, yeah.
So at the end of each And Good Company program, I ask guests the same 12 questions that French novelist Marcel Proust popularized from a Victorian game. But because you've already answered the original 12, I have 12 more for you. So, apropos to our conversation, what is your idea of perfect happiness?
Balance.
What is your greatest fear?
Mean spirit.
What is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
Now, there are plenty. I'm not looking for one. Internalizing too much.
Which living person do you most admire?
This is the toughest question I think you have ever asked me. I simply can't single out a living person. There are many, starting with yourself and going through all of our community all the way.
What is your greatest extravagance?
It would be travel if I had more time.
What is your current state of mind?
Happy.
On what occasion do you lie?
Surprise birthday parties. I'm a terrible liar.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Peace.
What talent would you most like to have?
Even more communication.
What is your most treasured possession?
My friends.
What do you most value in your friends?
their goodness.
What is your greatest regret?
All the things that I didn't get to do to help somebody.
If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, who or what would it be?
Something bright and beautiful and probably blue. That's all I can narrow it down.
Well, you did some good narrowing down there. I want to thank Julia Meek, who for the past 35 years has given so much more to the community, and you should be recognized as what I call a volunteer extraordinaire, a Renaissance woman, art advocate, community warrior, and I want to thank you for having a seat at our table.
Thank you. Truly peace and happiness to you.
Thank you. And you can learn more about And Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had at andgoodcompany.info. And we look forward to next week when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company. There we go.